Hello and welcome back to the Rescue Saga Workshop YouTube channel, and this week we're going to do a bit of a how-to video, more specifically looking at how to start a two-stroke engine. That might sound pretty simple to some of you, but there are a few things we should always be working through when starting these, and they'll always increase your ability to start that engine first time. So let's take a closer look. Okay, so I'm not using my strummer for any particular reason other than it's the cleanest and most presentable two-stroke engine I have. I like petrol garden tools. I think they're quite handy. They don't run out of batteries, and all you need to do is mix a little fuel, and as long as you have your machine set up right, it'll fire up nice and quickly and shouldn't cause you too much in the way of frustration. So before we start off, first thing to check is your fuel level, and this might sound particularly stupid, but you never know. Oh, that's great. You never know. If you're running low in fuel, obviously the machine's not going to start. That sounds like stating the obvious, but I'm sure it's happened to us all at least once. Plenty of fuel in this one, and as we all know, a two-stroke engine, the fuel, or the petrol, could be diesel, but not this, the fuel will contain oil and petrol. You will need to know what your specific ratio is, depending on your engine. This particular model here is a 25:1, so it's 25 parts petrol to 1 part oil, and I'm using a mixing bottle, which I will show you now. As it says exactly on the tin, fuel mixing bottle. So here on the graduation, if you're using one of these for the first time, you fill your petrol up to the 1 litre mark, and then according to what dilution or fuel ratio, fuel to oil ratio your machine uses, you then move it up to the graduation. So 25:1 is up here. Obviously 25:1 is the highest amount of oil compared to petrol in this. So I have that ready made, sitting, give it a good shake, and then you can pour it into your machine. Back over to the strimmer. These are some long handled hedge clippers, just before I go over to the strimmer. I've borrowed these, but these are, for instance, a 40:1 fuel mix, so I've been using a specific mix bottle to that to make sure I'm using the right ratio in the right machine. And further to that, I have a Husqvarna chainsaw, and that uses 50:1. So always important to use what the machine's meant to have. Having lots of different tools from different makes tend to have different ratios. That can get a bit irritating, but you do whatever you can. Just while we're on the subject of fuel, I tend to use, I'm obviously here in the United Kingdom, and I tend to use what is called E5 petrol, or super unleaded petrol. E5 contains 5% ethanol, and you want as little ethanol in your fuel as possible, unless your machine is specifically rated for it. And even then, super unleaded contains 97 RON or RON, so it's just generally better for your machine. It's a little bit more expensive, but we're not exactly talking about gallons of petrol here, so always best to use what you can. Let's get this machine started up then. So check the fuel. The next thing you're going to want to do, and I'll roll the machine over here so we can all see it, is to prime it. So this is the little fuel priming bulb, and there's obviously an air bubble in that, so I'm going to give it 1, 2, 3. You can see the fuel on the return line there, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there's obviously pure fuel going down both lines there. Air bubble remains, that's okay. And you can just feel that bulb get a little bit more solid as you pump it. The number of pumps will differ engine to engine. I think this one's 8, the chainsaw's 6. It doesn't really matter as long as there's plenty of fuel in both lines there and it's ready to start. Moving around the back of the machine then. Next thing you're going to want to look at is your choke. So your choke, those of you who are au fait with old cars will be undoubtedly quite familiar with what a choke is, but a choke adjusts the amount of air to fuel mix. Okay, so obviously whenever you're starting a machine, you want plenty of fuel to make sure it starts up, and then as the machine warms up and gets used, you can adjust the choke down to even out the fuel air mix. If you don't, the machine will be running too rich and it'll run cool, it just won't run just as nicely. If you run it too lean, then you'll be talking about burnt out valves and things like that. Before you do anything, you need to make sure that your switch is on. So obviously this is a slide forward to stop when you're finished your strimming. Slide it back to start. Use your triggers on this specific machine and make sure that no one is standing anywhere near the massive spinning blade up there. So primed, switch is on. We'll move the choke all the way up to the top. Let's give it a pull and see if she'll go. Camera now on the tripod, and you all know that I don't edit out my mistakes, so this is true to force, and I'm really hoping it starts up, otherwise the whole point of this video is going to look a little bit embarrassing. Let's give it a go. Okay, so third pull started to turn over. That's always a good sign. So I'm going to move the choke here down to about halfway down. All right, and we'll give it another pull, and this should start up and idle there at cold. I think I knocked the choke there with my finger. And there we go, idling away quite nicely. I have to say I do actually enjoy the sound of two-stroke idling. I leave it generally to idle for about 20 seconds there to warm up on the half choke. And then to just move it down there and let it idle away just before you start your work. Please don't ever be tempted to really rev it up from cold. That's never good for an engine. The components are all cold, the oil's not going to be working as it should. It's just a bad idea. You don't get into a car and immediately turn it on and hit the throttle to full. Please don't do it with your garden tools either. They're small engines. Please have a bit of mechanical sympathy. So whenever your work is done, it's always a good opportunity to just let the engine idle for about 20 seconds or so before turning it off. And this specific machine has an off switch, and that's what I'm going to use. So there you go. I hope I've made that quite simple. There's no reason why starting a two-stroke engine should be particularly difficult. If you want me to demonstrate in other machines, I'm more than happy to do it, but I just use this as a particular example. It hasn't been recently serviced or anything fancy. It's not particularly well set up or anything. I just maintain my machinery, as you know from my videos. It's probably due a service actually. I can see the air filter being a little bit loose under there and probably needs a new plug. But just look after your machinery and it'll always look after you, as the old saying says, look after your tools and they'll look after you. Just as some added footage for those of you who stayed on to the end of the video. Same principle again, so I know there's fuel in here. It's the right mixture, 50:1. You give the little bulb 6 pumps. 6 pumps. You pull your choke out, which in this machine also puts the off switch off. And then we give it some pulls. Nearly wants to go already. So we'll just put the throttle in, or the choke in halfway. There we go, completely unedited. So we'll let it rest there for about 20 seconds. And then you can push the choke off. Idle quite nicely at rest. Just like that. Thanks very much for watching this video here on the Rest of Saga Workshop YouTube channel. I really hope you enjoyed it and you found it useful. If you like it, give it a thumbs up down below, fire me a comment. I reply to every comment that I get. I'm going to work my way through some more of these how-to videos and some basic workshop stuff. They might not be for everybody, but if I can help somebody out, I think that's always a bonus. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram as well. I post regularly across all of those channels and try to vary the content as well. Thanks very much for helping me grow the channel, and I'll catch you again next week. Cheerio!